This happened approximately 5 years ago. I was a new college graduate who was constantly striving to prove myself at work. I always wanted to be the last person to leave the workplace so that my supervisor would notice me. As a result, I frequently found myself driving home after dark. I was about halfway home when I realized my petrol tank was nearly empty. Fortunately, there was a 7-Eleven on the right, which appeared to be open. I drive this way virtually every day, but I had never stopped here before. My automobile pulled up to the pump, and I began to fill the tank. There was an unnerving silence in the air, and I was the only one there. The only indication of life was a fluorescent light from the store on the other side of the parking lot. The pump gave a loud click to signify that my tank was full. I looked down at my watch and noticed the time at 9:45 p.m. I really need to start leaving earlier, I told myself. I let out a loud yawn and began strolling to the store to pay for gas. The large glass doors slid open as I reached the entrance. I walked inside and glanced around. The room was vacant. I remained in front of the entryway for a few seconds, expecting an employee to emerge from the back. I had previously worked the late shift in retail, so I knew what it was like. You hang around in the back, and when a customer walks in, you play rock, paper, scissors with a coworker to see who leaves. But no one came. Starting to feel apprehensive, I approached the counter gently, expecting to be met by an employee. I stood in front of the counter and looked around. "Hello, is anybody there? I just need to pay for gas," I yelled impatiently, hoping that someone would hear me and come out. I assumed that the high school students working this shift were simply taking their time until I discovered something awful. I noticed 2 small red spots of what appeared to be blood on the counter. Something was not right. Just then, someone appeared from the rear room. He was a scruffy-looking man in his 50s, not the adolescent I expected. He approached the cash register and conveniently placed his left hand over the droplets on the counter.
"Can I help you, sir?"
he muttered. "Ah, yes. I just need to pay for the gas," I answered nervously. My spider sense was tingling. I didn't believe this man worked here, but the safest option would be to pay for the gas and then phone the police from the road.
Sure,"
he replied. He began pressing buttons on the computer. He clearly didn't know what he was doing. A drop of sweat fell from his brow, and he gazed up at me.
"How much do you know?"
he muttered. "Nothing," I replied. "I just want to pay and leave."
"I'm afraid it's too late for that,"
he said, pulling out a revolver and pointing it directly at me. My entire body trembled as I raised my palms into the air. I did not plead for my life. It's not that I'm overly proud. I simply couldn't find the words.
"It's not personal,"
he added, laughing.
"Any last words?"
Then I heard a shot behind me, and the man fell to the ground. I turned around to see a police officer holding a smoking rifle. They arrived just on time. After I calmed down, I spoke with the officer about what had happened that evening.
"The cashier must have triggered the alarm just before they killed him,"
the cop stated. "He saved my life, and I'll never get a chance to thank him," I responded. This was the closest I'd ever been to death. It has shown me that there is a lot more to life than job. Since then, I've always made an effort to leave the office with enough time to enjoy my life, because you never know which day will be the last.
I drive along a particular road virtually every day. It's an ancient country road. The surface is somewhere between dirt and paved, as if it was paved once but was worn down over time and restored to gravel. My residence is just off this road, so I use it to go practically everything, including work, grocery, and everything in between. I'm a single woman living alone in a somewhat rural region. Some would find that weird, but I've always been fairly self-sufficient, and I'm a lot stronger than I appear. There isn't much out here but a 7-Eleven, where I am a regular customer. I was driving home from work one day and decided to stop for gas. As I reached the parking lot, I spotted a dark black pickup truck that I had never seen before. It featured tinted windows and some sort of custom wheels that appeared far too large. I didn't think much of it at the moment. It was unusual to see unfamiliar vehicles in this small and tight-knit community, although it did happen on occasion. I pulled up to one of the pumps and got out of the car. While I was filling my tank, a man approached me from the truck. He was an older, middle-aged man, possibly in his 50s. He wore a clean button-down shirt with shredded jeans, which struck me as a strange mix. I didn't pay attention, instead focusing on my car. He kept at least 10 feet between us, and I could tell he was looking at me from my peripheral vision. I ignored him because I had no idea what he was asking for. When my tank was full, I paid for gas and drove away. About halfway home, I noticed the pickup in my rearview mirror. I couldn't see the driver, but I knew it was the truck from the 7-Eleven. I nearly drove into a ditch when I noticed he was following me. What terrified me the most was how close we were to my home. I can't tell him where I live, I told myself out loud. I went down a random route to see if he would follow. To my horror, he did it. He was keeping a 5-car distance between us at the time. Once we returned to the main road, I decided to drive to the police station. I hoped this would scare him away. As I approached the station, the truck vanished into the distance. Even though nothing happened, I went ahead and filed a police report. The lieutenant is a friend of mine. I teach his son music, so he was quite gracious and took the situation seriously. However, he did admit that there was probably nothing they could do. It is hard to discern this man's intentions. He could have simply been a lonely guy with weak social skills, or it could have been far worse. I haven't seen him since, and I hope this never changes.